Hey there, Vern. I'm so glad you're here to join us today. Do you remember Ernest P. Worrell, the first viral superstar? Know what I mean? He was huge before smartphones and that strange new app called Tickety-Tock that all the kids are on nowadays. Today's the day, Vern, when Ernest will go down in those big, thick history books. So come on, let's look at the colorful life and tragic ending of Jim Varney, the man that stared straight into the hearts of all of us in the 80s and 90s. But if you think Ernest was all Varney accomplished, or that Jim himself was a bumbling fool, you'd be sorely mistaken. Jim always had a knack for making people laugh.
A thankless job, but somebody's got to do it. Know what I mean?
Colored gloves.
Those who worked close with him said that he was funnier off camera than he was on. Ernest was lovable, goofy beyond belief, and very relatable. We all know someone like Ernest, and that's why the character was so successful. I'm looking straight at you, Uncle Glenn, and I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick. And let's jump on in and see if I can channel as much contagious energy as Ernest.
Hey Vern, I'm thinking of a color between 1 and 10.
If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't be shy, Ernest never was. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. A young talent. James Albert Varney Jr. was born on June 15, 1949 in Lexington, Kentucky. As a child, he had a knack for learning poems and stories to entertain friends and family. His mother soon realized that he was imitating the cartoons he was watching and immediately enrolled him in theater classes. He was only 8 years old. Varney recalled this time saying that he had a loud and clear speaking voice, which made the classes fun. He continued his theater career into his teenage years, even winning state titles for drama in high school. And Varney was performing professionally in nightclubs and coffee houses by the time he was 17. But he had a little to learn before becoming Ernest. The apex of clean comedy. Jim Varney got into television in 1974, appearing as various characters on Ralph Emery's country program Pop Goes the Country, which was a spin-off of the Porter Wagner Show.
Tell them they can have the free tickets, okay? Please. Tom, I'll pay for the tickets, okay? Tom!
Then in 1976, he joined another crew. You may have heard of them, as he became a regular cast member on the show Johnny Cash and Friends. And in 77, he began scratching that wacky improv itch, becoming a recurring guest on the Norman Lear-created parody late-night talk show Fernwood Tonight. Varney created Virgil Sims, the local mechanic who offered automotive advice.
I don't smoke no dope, I prefer RC Coke, like my whiskey and my dog and my mom.
Also in 77, he got a huge breakout role, cast as Doom and Gloom Broom in the television version of Operation Petticoat. So enjoyable to watch, he was one of only 3 actors rehired for season 2 of the show. They even passed on the legendary Gomez Addams, aka John Astin's renewal. Then he was part of the notorious flop Pink Lady and Jeff, again using his versatility and improv skills to morph into different characters. Varney also toured as a stand-up comic, and along with Robin Williams, Varney was one of Los Angeles Comedy Store's original alumni. He and Williams would remain friends until his passing.
Yeah, you can see that in people. They're used to dropping them and things. That looks better for the documentary footage.
They
Like
tested them in Nam, didn't they?
Uh-oh, things aren't going well.
Varney was great at making up characters and entire backstories that he would then utilize in future projects. They even started advertising him as Jim Ernest Varney for things, like when he co-starred with Medical Center's Chad Everett in the series The Roasters, where Jim played Evan Earp, a descendant of famed Wyatt Earp of the Wild West. In 1985, he even co-hosted HBO's New Year's Eve special, alongside Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson. Ernest came to fruition in the early 80s, when Varney joined a local advertising agency in Nashville to help pay the bills, and made connections that would change his life. He began working with John Cherry of the advertising agency Carden and Cherry. Their goal was to bring comedy back into commercials, specifically at the local level. The first ad they produced was for the Nashville Purity Dairies, and their first character was Sergeant Glory, the drill sergeant that everybody wanted to please. But that was just the beginning. Let's stare straight into the gold mine of a simple, buffoonish redneck who always seemed to redeem himself in the end. Hey Vern, it's Ernest. Ernest P. Worrell, Jim Varney's truly iconic character, wasn't the sharpest tool in the small tool building. And sure, he was more than a bit accident prone.
You know, Vern, this must be some kind of a cigarette lighter.
But we rooted for him because his heart was always in the right place. Ernest's first appearance was in 1980 for a commercial for Beach Bend Raceway Park in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The character was primarily a local sensation at first, but then brands all around the country came a-callin'. The Ernest character was unique for many reasons, mainly for his addresses directly to the camera, as if he was speaking to a friend, oftentimes very close to the camera lens, like he's a close-talking relative you're always inching backwards from. The pitch was simple. Ernest was your friend, so he wouldn't ever sell you anything bad, especially those ice cream cones from Brahms. Do you remember those commercials? Man, I could really go for some ice cream right now. And from McDonald's
And a delicious dessert, ma'am.
to Sprite.
Never, when in Florida, ever do this to an alligator.
Ernest P. Worrell began marketing just about every major brand. Although Varney's brainchild, eventually a team of 15 writers were brought in to help create copy for Ernest. Varney claimed that the inspiration for Ernest was a conglomeration of different people that he'd known throughout his life. The character became so popular that in 1988, it received its own TV series, Hey Vern, It's Ernest, and he began to rival Pee Wee Herman. Varney was so talented that he portrayed multiple characters in a single episode, and he won a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Performer in a Children's Series. So good at multitasking because Varney was not thick-headed like his Ernest. In fact, he reportedly had a near genius IQ and was said to be occasionally exasperated with fans who met him and assumed that he was exactly like Ernest. Then it was time for the big screen. In total, 10 Ernest movies were made. 5 independently and 5 with Disney. The first few were contracted by Disney after Ernest upstaged other characters at the Indianapolis 500. Disney knew there was money to be made with this oddball, and soon these family-friendly films were constantly being rented from video stores. The films were simple and low budget, the first one being Ernest Goes to Camp. Written and directed by John Cherry of The Ad Agency. It also co-starred the Crying Indian, aka Iron Eyes Cody, in his final film appearance. You'll remember him from the infamous littering campaign of the 70s. And we have a great throwback look at the top 10 memorable PSAs if you haven't checked that one out yet. This was the only Ernest film to be shot in widescreen, and only cost around $3.5 million. Not bad when it grossed over $20 million. And then in '88, Ernest progressed from camp to Saving Christmas, in probably the most well-known Ernest venture. Another fun part of these films was Hee Haw's Gaylord Sartain's collaboration. 99% of the time his character named Chuck. But after the first test screening in Burbank, John Cherry was sat down by Disney execs Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, and Cherry feared that they were going to cancel the contract. But instead, they upped the contract from a 3-picture deal to a 6-picture deal. Before it was all said and done, Jim Varney appeared in over 3,000 filmed TV commercials, and claimed in an interview that he thought it might be the record. Take that, Flo.
Paper, rock, scissors. All why use all this mathematical, analytical. I started to say bullshit.
And Ernest inspired a lot of merchandise and cool gadgets. There was even a talking Ernest doll. I can only guess what it had to say. Know what I mean? Non-Ernest gigs. In 1985, Jim Varney co-wrote with John Cherry the film Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam. The character Ernest even introduced the movie, but it was cut before the release. The whole thing was a borderline Ernest flick, which helped Cherry and Varney sharpen the idea. One of Jim's other notable roles came in 1993, taking on the challenge of Jed Clampett in the reboot of The Beverly Hillbillies, a task he took seriously, as the original was his family's favorite program in the 1960s. He nearly didn't get the role, as the studio feared he was too well known for Ernest. Luckily, his screen test proved that Varney was the one to strike oil again. Oh, the other actor considered for the role? Just the man with the velvet voice and the stash of the century, Mr. Sam Elliott. Also in '93, Varney played Rex in the Dennis Quaid-led pyro-fanatic film Wilder Napalm, written by Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan. Varney also wonderfully voiced Slinky the dog in the first 2 Toy Story films.
I knew you'd come back, Woody.
Varney would jokingly say that the role was a stretch for him. He followed that by instructing the interviewer that it was indeed a joke. Wishes come true. Jim Varney was a kind, generous man who never met a stranger, and when he was offered the opportunity to work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he jumped at it. He happily put on his denim vest and khaki hat to fulfill hundreds of brave, terminally ill children's wishes. Varney was a lifetime heavy smoker, and when he was diagnosed with lung cancer in August of 1998, he reportedly threw away his cigarettes and quit smoking cold turkey. Unfortunately, it was too late. He underwent surgery to remove most of his right lung that same year, but the doctors discovered that the cancer had spread to his brain. He underwent radiation, which sent him into remission. Varney didn't let the cancer slow him down, and kept working on his project Daddy and Them. He portrayed the only sober man in a family of Southern alcoholics. This role was the dramatic role that Varney had always dreamed of playing. Varney passed away at the age of 50 on February 10th, 2000. We want to say thank you, Jim, for always making us laugh, whether it was on the small screen or the big one. His final Ernest endeavor, Ernest the Pirate, had nearly completed shooting at the time of his death, but it was unfortunately never finished. But it sounded like a knee buckler for sure. So let's talk. Do you have a favorite Ernest adventure? I have to go with Saving Christmas. I'm a sucker for a good Christmas flick. And what are some memorable commercials of his? Like the one where the window slams on his fingers? Get in the comments and let's honor an outlandish actor that always brought the funny. Know what I mean? And if you enjoyed revisiting the life of Jim Varney, consider clicking that thumbs up for us and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a throwback video. From all of us here at Do You Remember, thanks very much for watching. See you later, Vern.